Hello, everyone. My name is John from Community Life Church in Catskill, New York, and this is Meals Ready to Eat from the Bible. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today's episode is 5 Things I Learned from Chapter 11. If it is not by grace, it cannot be through faith. Now, the Bible, if we read it, can teach us a lot. We can know a lot how we, you and me, are saved by grace. Romans chapter 11 tells you and me the story of how we can walk in grace. And when our faith then comes alive, we become alive in faith and we can live by faith. So here are 5 things about grace in action, living by faith, that I learned from Romans chapter 11. All righty then. Let's break this down, see what God's saying to us in Romans chapter 11. What are our 5 things? Number 1, this is verses 5 and 6. In the same way, then, there has also come to be at the present time a remnant according to God's gracious choice. But if it is by grace, it is no longer on the basis of works. Otherwise, grace is no longer grace. So Paul starts this chapter by talking about he, Jew born under the law, raised according to the law, and living by the law, was now saved by grace. And like in the days of Elijah, it's verses 2 through 4, if you go back and read those, it appears that none of the people follow God. God responded to Elijah and told him, said, look, there are those who stay true to God, and that's true then, and it's true now. Today it's by grace, just as it was in the days of Elijah and Paul. That has not changed. Number 2, but I am speaking to you who are Gentiles, or non-Jews, inasmuch then as I am an apostle of the Gentiles, I magnify my ministry, if somehow I might move to jealousy my fellow countrymen and save some of them. For if their rejection is the reconciliation of the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? In other words, the Jewish people rejected Jesus. How much more powerful will the gospel become when they accept him? And at that time, and it's true today, there was a controversy between those born as Jews and those born as Gentiles. Paul, however, did not reject his people. He still wants them to know the gospel and accept Jesus as the Messiah. More importantly, God has not rejected them. Jesus, born a Jew, is the Messiah of all people. 3, but if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive, were grafted in among them and became a partaker with them of the rich root of the olive tree, do not be arrogant toward the branches. But if you are arrogant, remember that it is not you who supports the root, but the root who supports you. We must remember what we stand on. The entire history of the Jewish people is our foundation. The history of the Jewish people is also the history of the Christian people. The creation of the world, the choosing of Abraham and his descendants, the creation and then destruction of the nation of Israel, and its reconstitution, by the way, in 1947, all have lessons we must learn from. We cannot ignore our history. The simple story of how Abraham was called out of the world he lived in to a new place with a God-created destiny should inspire us to follow God with our whole heart. That story of Abraham's call, go back to Genesis 12, very important for each one of us. Number 4, quite right. They were broken off for their unbelief. But if you stand by your faith, do not be conceited, but fear God. For if God did not spare the natural branches, he will not spare you either. So Paul completes the story beginning in verse 1. Those who rejected God in unbelief will be judged. Doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter who you are, whether a Jew or a Gentile, whether you go to church or don't go to church, you will be judged if you reject God. We are all saved by grace through faith, not by what we were born as or what we accomplish. God chose us and called us, and we must respond. Salvation comes from God. It's up to us, it's up to you, it's up to me to respond, even if we do so imperfectly. Doesn't matter. God will perfect our faith if we turn to him and follow him. And that's Mark 9:24 and Hebrews 12:2. Oh, the depth of the riches, both of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments and unfathomable his ways. For who has known the mind of the Lord, or who has become his counselor, who's told him what to do? Or who was first given to him that it might be paid back to him again? For from him and through him and to him are all things. To him, to God be the glory forever. Amen. So the nature of the grace of God is revealed here. God's grace is shown to be all sufficient for us to know and understand him, even though his judgments and his wisdoms are beyond our reach. You can go read 2 Corinthians 12:9 to get some insight into that. We dare not tell God what to do, but we must recognize that his grace toward us changes us when we respond to him in faith. We cannot pay him back. We cannot do for him, but we can only follow and obey him. Since from him, through him, and to him are all things, we must respond to his grace. Because if it's not by grace, it cannot be through faith. And we cannot set our own agenda and say it's God. We have to allow God's grace to work in us, and we have to follow him. We must submit ourselves to his will. And when we do so, we glorify him. You can read about that in Ephesians chapter 1, verses 3 through 6. Now, the day we live in is one of anger and hate, especially in this country. Much of this is directed towards Israel and the Jews, even those who don't live in Israel or support what they're doing. But we can't walk in that. But rather, we must understand their place and ours in the history recorded in the Bible. We must understand how God has used them and us to reach the entire world with the good news of the love and salvation of Jesus. Well, that was a bit of a long one, so let's just wrap it all up. First of all, this is not an in-depth study of Romans chapter 11, but it's what I learned about the history of all the people who follow God. It's about the history of the Jews, about the history of the Christians. Now, we as Christians must stand on the faith that was established in the Old Testament. And we're given a choice by God. And what we do with that choice changes my life, your life, our lives, and the lives of those around us. And that is good news. All right, thanks for watching. You can find us on the web at clchurch.cc. That's clchurch.cc. We meet 10:30 Sunday mornings in 20 West Main Street, Catskill, New York. Hope to see you there, and thanks once again.